Welcome to our podcast on the real side. I'm Bob Mover, and I have a very wonderful guest with me, as we often do, but a very special cat by the name of Joe Magnarello. Sorry, name of Joe Magnarelli. Let's say
Actually, it's Magnarelli.
Magnarelli.
That's what it
Io
is.
parlo italiano. Ti parli italiano?
Not really. When I'm over there, sometimes I can.
I genitori ha parlato italiano quando non voglio che tu saperi.
That's yeah.
He
I
spoke it
know.
when he didn't want you to understand.
Yeah.
That's most of my Italian American friends had that situation where, So anyway, we have the wonderful, wonderful trumpet player, wonderful musician, Mr. Joe Magnarelli,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
other known as Mags, because in America
Yeah.
they pronounce the G. and but Joe has been around for quite a while and created a very individualistic approach to playing modern jazz, and he's he has a very interesting evolution and continues to play very interesting music and live a very interesting life and have activity. I was looking at your website, and it's funny because I have had to stop performing in public because of this emphysema. I'm called high risk, so I can't fly and I can't do this. But looking at your schedule, looked like my schedule for 20 years. It was a fall schedule. It's full of work and going to, at least 3 or 4 different countries a season, and
Right.
with people, sometimes with fellow Americans or North American musicians, sometimes with the cats that bring you over there from Europe who like to have us over there to play with them, and sometimes hybrid groups where combined Americans and the Europeans or the people, South Americans, wherever you're going. And so Joe is off on this tour in the fall with, among other people, Gary Samulian, and you've been doing some things together. I think you guys just
Yeah.
didn't you?
We just finished the thing of all in total like 5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and a very fine young clarinetist named Virginia McDonald,
Yes, sir.
and in fact, she's coming over Saturday
Oh,
to
cool.
practice with me and
Oh, wow, great.
have a little session at my house. You're welcome if you want to come.
What time? I got something. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, about 1:30 to 5. Just
Yeah. Okay,
but
good. Sounds good.
that'll be fun. And Joe is originally from Syracuse, New York, right? You're from there,
Yes. Yes.
and there's a great tradition of upstate musicians, largely of Italian descent too. I mean, like from oh man, Sam Noto, Sal Nistico, Joe Robano, J.R. Montrose, and a bunch of a lot of people from that part of the world. Um, in fact, in your biography, one name intrigued me. Several did, but one that especially interested me is a cat named Sal Amico.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And I heard Sal Amico, one of the first records I bought when I was 13 years old. I went to a record store and I had heard Sal Nistico with Woody's band, and he became an instant hero of mine, the great Sal Nistico. And one of his first records was called Coming On Strong.
Coming on up.
Coming On Up, right. And that had a trumpet player named Sal Amico on it, who, kind of sounded in a kind of a style of a more, let's say, a cooler style, more like in the realm of Chet Baker, Art Farmer, and Miles and Kenny Dorham, He kind of seemed like he had a little of all of those cats in it. And that's the only time I ever heard him. And so you actually knew Sal Amico. Whoa.
Well, knew him. I mean, he saved my life, really. I mean, I graduated college. I didn't study music. I love music. I was always playing somewhere or something with a band, but I didn't have, I didn't know what to do. And I met Sal, and he was a serious cat, even though he had his issues, but he was serious about the music and he could play. And I would say the guy you're leaving out in describing him was early Miles, because that was really his man, like cooking, relaxing. And actually, he knew Kenny Dornan at the time that he did that record with Sal. There's a connection between him and Kenny Dornan, which is too long to explain, but it's outside of music. So they became kind of acquaintances, and so he knew Kenny personally. He loved KD.
He was a lovable man, KD. I knew him too.
Yeah, and like I also spent a lot of time with J.R. Montrose. Not as much, but significant time with J.R. Montrose. Like just over his house, playing gigs with him, going to his gigs. For a while I used to go every Wednesday to go see him every Wednesday.
Oh.
And just hang out and play tunes, and then he had a gig on Wednesday nights, and then we go to his gig, and I'd go and sit with him at dinner, and make a whole day of it.
How old were you at the time?
That's how I learned That's how I learned how the life was.
Well, that's where you were. These cats that could really play. The beautiful thing about this music is how it goes beyond just the fact that you sat in a practice room for 6 or 8 hours or whatever you did. That's part of it, but a large part of it is who you hung with. The hangout was not just wasting time. It was, from the time in my life, I knew Ira Sullivan from the time I was 13 years old. And so the cats in Miami that were, Ira's constituency were, were bringing me up, and I would go and have breakfast with them and just listen to the stories or listen to them discuss, sometimes it was about music, sometimes it was about some technical thing with music, but it was the stories and the laughter.
Exactly.
That feeling of,
yeah,
these cats were very social.
Yeah.
There was a real social scene.
Well, a lot of my experience up there actually, was with those two cats. But the gigs I played, actually, I started inviting Nick Brignola to the steady gig I had in Syracuse, and he made it. And then, he did it for like, half a year. We used to do every Sunday. So he used to come once a month. And then he started calling me to play for $40 in Albany. So I drove from Syracuse to Albany for $40, which was, I'm glad I did it, believe me.
Well, how far is that? And how old were you?
I was old, man. I was like 23. And the reason why I bring that up is because after those gigs, especially in Albany and in Syracuse, he would be crack us up for hours, man, just telling us stories and jokes. And, plus he was just, sometimes he'd keep his flute out at breakfast, he'd just be playing all this stuff on the flute at breakfast,
Oh.
Like, check this out, man, and then, and the thing I noticed about Nick that was very hip was like, we were all in our 20s, so at breakfast we were eating all this stuff. And Nick always used to have like a bagel, man. That was it. That's all he'd have, a bagel and maybe a coffee for the ride home. He never went crazy with the food, I really thought I caught that, I'm like, oh, that's cool, man.
That was like Chet Baker, eggs over easy.
Yeah?
I could predict
Really?
it. Yeah, I mean, occasionally some bacon or sausage with it, something like that. But we'd go for breakfast after the gig, and generally people would be, you're hungry. You played all night, and sometimes you're hungry at this hour. And, I'd be eating seriously. And Chet was 2 eggs over easy. And that was what he liked to have. And, that was funny. But, yeah, sometimes you would laugh, so hard that these cats could make you hurt.
Oh yeah, man. For sure. So it was nice to be up there for a couple of years. I was only up there for like as a jazz musician, or aspiring a jazz musician, maybe I should say, for like 3.5 years, and then I moved to New York.
Let's go back a little bit in your life. Like, oh, I just want to tell you a J.R. Montrose story that you might get a kick out of.
I go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I only played with him. I met him once in Montreal. He was up there to play a gig, and I sat in with him. We had a beautiful time. I was already in my 30s, and he was sounding beautiful and was very nice to me. We had a good time. But he went to Boston and he played a thing called the Hasty Pudding Club, which was at Harvard University, and it was a concert series that went on, and they had different people. I did one, Red Rodney did one, and JR was on their list. A cat named Bob Merrill used to promote these concerts. Anyway, I said, so you had JR. What was that like? How was it? He said, oh man, he played great. He sounded fantastic, but something really weird happened. I said, what happened? He said, well, the next day, before he left town, there was a review in the paper, in the Boston Globe, and the review was laudatory. It said, JR is playing great. He's probably never sounded better. He inspired us. He did this. And that it was all accolades. He said, so JR is reading the article, and he's going, oh, no. Oh, shit. Oh. And then so the cat asked him, what's wrong? Are you reading the same article we're reading? You're grumbling about it, and this is great. And it turns out, as the story has it, he had a car accident.
Oh, yeah.
And he was plowed into,
Right.
by the daughter of Governor Carey in New York.
Right.
And JR says to the cats, he says, do you think they read the Boston Globe in New York, in Albany?
Man, you know what? I know that story, man, and I remember that was great. It was before my time with him, but he told me he told me about that. And he wrote a tune called like the jury, or what did he write? He wrote some kind of tune like the courtroom or some stuff like so. It was either in 5 or 3. It was like this real, yeah. I gotta think.
Well, he claimed that he would no longer play to his best ability because of the injuries he sustained in this accident, and he was rewarded a substantial amount of money, which I don't know whether it was the high 5 figures or the low 6 figures, but it was certainly a nice taste. And of course, it was the governor's daughter, I believe. So now that he's gone, like we can tell the story.
Right.
But that cracked me up, that he's sitting there, gets the review, and he's going, oh no.
That's funny, man. That's hilarious. But I remember that. I remember hearing about that. Yeah. JR, because he was always playing in Albany, man. He was always he used to play with the piano player there. I forgot his name. He was older than JR, and he used to play there like at Justin's. I was on Lark Street. Still there, but I don't think they have music, or maybe it's not Justin's anymore. But yeah.
Well, Jimmy Wormworth is my guide to that area. He's like a historian of that area. Did you know Jimmy?
Very well. Yeah.
I mean, you know him now in New York, of course, but
I knew him before I moved to New York. No, I knew him before I moved to New York. Yeah. I knew a young Jimmy Wormworth in his 40s.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
Jimmy could swing, man.
Oh man, one of the greatest cymbal beats of all time. And not that I play with everybody, but I know I've been around a little bit, and man, this cymbal beat is there with everybody, man. One of the greats.
That ride is beautiful, isn't it?
One of the greats, man.
Makes you understand why they call it a ride cymbal.
Yeah. No, you just give so much space in there to but you know what I'm saying? Like there's space in there. Just there's freedom in there.
Yeah. Well, it's the space between the beats that's so important in drummers. And even bass players. We had a bass player one time, and Chet said to the bass player, Chet didn't seem happy. He said, Chet, you're not very happy with what I'm doing. Is there anything you can tell me? Because he says, is my notes are okay? He says, no, your notes are fine. But bass is about the space between the notes.
Right.
Got to play the space. And
yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know, and that's when drummers and bass players hook up, and you feel that they both understand that space between the notes.
I agree with you. Yeah, sure.
You know,
Definitely, man.
so was Bill Rubenstein up there at all ever? The piano player?
Not really. I didn't know him.
Yeah, he was originally from that
Maybe
area.
in Utica. Maybe he was in Utica.
He might have been. But
Yeah,
I just
maybe.
wonder.
But I never ran into him. No.
Yeah. Anyway, he was a great player and very overlooked. But you came up. Okay, you're from a.
Did you know Frankie Stagnita?
I know his. There's some records of his playing.
Yeah, he was good.
But I don't. I never met him.
And there was another cat up there, Barry Kiner, who died young.
I knew Barry.
Yeah, he was good.
I played with Barry.
Yeah, okay.
A few times, and that was he was on Buddy's band, wasn't he? When he.
Yeah.
When he passed. Yeah, I knew Barry, and he was a beautiful player. And you know, but you know, that's one of the casualties of experimentation.
It's life, man.
And so but you come from an Italian family, no doubt.
Yeah.
Italian on both sides.
Yeah, everything. Well, as far as I know, yeah, everything. Yeah.
And it says your dad liked to sing, and your first experiences were playing piano.
Yeah.
You took up piano at what led to your being you know to your being playing the piano and playing with.
Well, my mom said that I was always like when the Beatles came out, she bought some records, Beatles records, and I was always listening to the Beatles like around 6 or 7. She said I would stand by the record player and listen to the record. I don't remember that. And around 11 years old, they bought a piano. This, long story, but we had, and my dad was a very good amateur Broadway comedian. That's how I would say it. And he really was good, man. They,
like
they
stand up, you mean, or like
no, like in play.
show actor.
No, he did some of that, but only when he was invited to do like 5 minutes somewhere. He would do that.
But a comic actor like Zero Mostel or somebody like.
Yeah, he was more of a skit guy. He did skits, you know what
sketches,
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, he was in these shows, but and so he, there was music in the family, so they bought a piano, and he knew enough from being at all these rehearsals, and he was interested. He was a jack of all trades. He could play a little trumpet, a little piano, but he couldn't play anything good. He couldn't even really, he could play a little bit on piano. He could play a song. So, anyways, I was 11. I looked at him, and I just started doing what he did. And then he bought all these fake books. I got one right here, man. I'll show you. Hold on.
Those old fake books.
I'm going to show you, man. I still practice on it.
1,000 tunes.
Yes, I got 3 of these. Hold on, check it out, man. Yeah, right here, man. This book right here. Let's see. Is that backwards? No, it's not backwards. What's this tune? You do something to me, yeah.
Something to me. Cold water, yeah.
Like it only happens when I dance with you. It might as well be spring. You don't know me. I'll get by. 14 bars.
Yeah. As long as I have you.
Man, I've been practicing on this book since I'm 11 years old, man. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
You know that I had those books. This is all pre-real book. For those of you who don't understand, the real book is sort of a play on words, where these were called fake books. And you would get them by going to a local music store. This is at least how I got mine. And you'd say a code word, basically not really that, but you'd say, do you have it? And they say, oh, which book do you want? 1,000 tunes? Or whatever it was called. They would say something like that. And for, at the time, $10, it was like around $10, you would get this book, and it had all those tunes, including tunes like, down when Yuba plays the tuba down in Cuba, tunes you would never play.
But it's in there.
It's in there, and very effective for quotes, even if you just learn.
Well, somebody must have liked it if it's in the book, man. It must have been popular somewhere.
Right, it was that kind of thing, I mean. Yeah. And the funny thing with that was, I bet you did the same thing. What I would do with those books was they all had wrong changes. The melodies were right, but the changes, they would throw in diminished chords all over the place. There'd be this, and then there'd be a diminished, or it would be not the right dominant. It would be this kind of thing. And then sometimes they were sort of right. And I would just take the standard and say, well, what would the blowing changes be if I were to just say it only happens when I dance with you? It only happens when I dance with you. Ah, there's a 2/5 there. Like being a little kid and just learning about 2/5s and, oh, this is there. That's a progression. It goes to the relative minor. That's what they're trying to say. It's not 4 chords. It's just an E7th A, with a flat
Right,
number.
right.
But they've got A diminished, B diminished, and then
Yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
but I have to say though, if you really, I mean, I wouldn't say they're the right changes to play on a gig, or to blow on for sure. But they do make sense, man. Like if you really, some of those diminished chords, if you think about what usually they just are masks for dominant chords sometimes.
yeah, most of the time they were like secondary dominants.
Yeah, or like if you like instead of like writing A half diminished to D7 alter, they put C minor to D7 alter to go to a G minor, let's say. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like things like that.
Which is the way they thought that the C minor sixth. Nobody thought of a half diminished chord.
Right. So that's in these books because it's pre bebop,
Right, and so
probably the movie changes sometimes, maybe you never know.
Yeah, sometimes that's
You
true.
never know, Yeah. I don't. I mean, I don't.
No, but that's true. I think they were, but that was our education.
Yeah.
That was when, and I think it was interesting because the way you play, I've noticed, and the way I play, is we don't always harmonize the tune the same way chorus to chorus.
Right.
Sometimes there's another secondary dominant put in a half step, these kind of harmonic moves you can make that when the real book came out, then people got the idea that there was one way to play the song.
Right. That's right.
And you have to like tell them, look, don't get narrowed down by this thing. Use your imagination. And those books that we're talking about let you say, well, yeah, in this place, what they mean by that diminished chord is that D minor seventh can be D7, or
right. That's
A
right.
flat seventh. It could be that into the G.
That's right. That's right.
And so and you still play piano. I hear you're a very good piano.
Oh, I'm gonna practice as soon as I'm done because I got a gig tonight and I want to get in like some piano before I leave. Yeah. Every day I try to play every day. When I'm on the road, I try to play at the sound check for 5 minutes. If I have to bribe the piano player with coffee or whatever, I'll do that or a beer. And then some nights I get to play one tune with the rhythm section because the piano player likes to go listen. That's my highlight, man. I love that. That's great. So I practice for those moments.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And so then, okay, so you're still in upstate New York, and you've gone to, you had a job for a little while. You went to a community college, Onondaga, how do you pronounce it?
Onondaga Community College, yeah.
Community college. And I read that you served as a choir director in a Baptist church.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. When I was in high school, the thing that really kept me out of music full time was I played basketball. So I was, not only did I go to have basketball practice like 5 months a year, 5 months a year, I also played every day outside of the season. So I was always playing basketball. So I hooked up with this choir director on a train ride home from New York one time. I went down with my mother to see a show and I came back by myself and I met this reverend. His name was Reverend Leroy Gainey. And long story short, he became one of my biggest mentors in life still to this day. I think about the things that we talked about. He loved basketball. So we made this 5-hour train ride back to the church and just talked basketball, man, at the time, like who's this guy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of a sudden we're in Syracuse, So in the midst of the conversation, he said, I'm taking over a church, Central Baptist Church, and I don't have a choir director. Would you like to come and play piano? And we start in 2 weeks. I said, sure, because he had to find somebody. Of course, I told him I was a musician. I play piano, a little piano. So that's how it happened. And like, okay, so I mean, I did at the end, man, I was a serious choir director. I mean, that's why I was replaced because, I couldn't handle it, man. It was heavy. It got to be heavy. But when I first joined the church, the first congregation was two little older ladies, I'll say, his wife and to his two daughters, me and him.
That was the
That was the
congregation.
first Sunday, yeah.
That was,
But it grew. But it
and
grew
this,
by the
these
time.
were Afro Americans.
Oh well, no, the two older white ladies, but the church grew very fast, and it was
Leroy, he
it
was
was
a black man.
predominantly African American, yes.
Right.
And I, I loved it, man. It was great. And then what happened was I got really hooked into it because he got me a job through my father, who was also a politician. Well, I don't want to go into that, but
Well, go into a little bit.
all right, a little bit. But anyways, through my father in the city, I got a summer job which extended into all the way through the winter, where he had a basketball court cafeteria down at the bottom of the church, so I could oversee the basketball. So I was in heaven, man. I go upstairs, play piano, play trumpet, then go downstairs and play basketball. And nobody.
And you're what, 21?
I was cool, man. Like I was cool. Sometimes
You're like about 20,
21,
cool. 19. How old are you here?
At this point, I'm 18, 19.
Okay.
Yeah, 18, 19. Yeah. And that was my gig. I did it, And just one other thing I'll say, it might sound crazy, but when I was in 8th grade, my first real serious instrument was guitar. And I started taking lessons in 6th grade, and I was really good. And in 1975, 74, this might be boring, but the Catholic Church switched over to folk music. It was a big thing in the Catholic Church, like it's folk now, we're going folk, you know what I mean? So the nuns, I went to a Catholic school, the nuns were training me because I was a good guitar player. We rehearsed all the time, like, before basketball practice, I would be in with the nuns playing these folk songs on guitar. I had a capo, I was limited, but I could, so I had to get, so when I was in 8th, I would say 8th and 9th grade, I played, and the big mass was Saturday night, 5:30 mass. That was the folk mass. Oh. And so I had a gig every Saturday at the church, when I was in 8th, 9th grade. Yeah.
Well, Martin Mull says you all remember the great folk music scare of the 60s.
Well, yeah, but this is a little different.
No, I know, but I remember when everything was folk music, was like.
I mean, the music we played was pretty boring, man. It was pretty boring.
Well, so was this. I mean, in the 60s, though, there were some things, Peter Yarrow just died, and they were very musical, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And, that's when Dylan came up and kind of revolutionized the thing quite a bit. He was like the bird of that stuff, But there was, Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell and, quite Judy Collins. There was a lot of folk music. And the Kingston Trio, who I still think Scotch and Soda is a great tune. But that wasn't exactly folk. That was like the first thing I heard that on radio that I said, maybe this is kind of jazz. That, So you were doing this and you were playing folk music. Why did you stop playing guitar?
I got busy with basketball and high school, and I went to an all-male high school, so it was a lot of tension, fights, and it was a lot of stuff. Man.
Was that a Catholic all-male high school?
Yeah, it was a Jesuit school,
Oh.
And but they had a great basketball program, and a lot of actually one of my teammates played in the NBA for 2 years. Another one got a tryout. My teammates. Other people who went to the school made it to professional sports too. But on my actual team, I had my friend, the starting center on my team was the St. Bonaventure's all-time leading scorer,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was good, it was good as high level, I wasn't that good. I was just on the team. I was like, I did my thing,
Well, you're good enough to hang with them.
Yeah, I was a Division III guy, I went a little under. It's just okay though. It was I did the best I could. I loved it. It's good.
So, so we have you going from the Catholic, your parents went to church on Sunday and.
Oh yeah.
If your dad was a politician, he had to go to church on Sunday.
Oh no, that was big. No, they never miss. My brother and sister never miss still.
You still, how many were there of you?
3. I'm the youngest, yeah.
You're the youngest, and they are not musicians, the other ones?
No, but they like music. They like music, yeah.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
So you come up, you can't come up with Catholic upbringing,
Yeah.
and then you get this kind of black Baptist exposure through your friend the Reverend, right? And
Yeah,
because
it was really through basketball, because just because it just led me, it just led, my love for the game. I mean, I just wanted to be around, people that love basketball. So that's why we just became good friends. And actually, a little side story, he took me to New York for 2 weeks to live with his mother that summer. So I met him in December, whatever that was, the year that was. And then the next spring or early summer, I stayed in the Bronx for almost 2 weeks with his mom and his brother. And I played basketball in the Bronx up in Southview, man, with like some street cats, man. It was like, it was all kinds of stuff going on, man, and
now
but it was cool. I
you
got the
play
word.
basketball.
The word was I was cool, man. I was from Leroy, the game. He says I was cool, so
Yeah.
I was playing pickup games in the Bronx. It's 18, 19 years old after I had played a season already. No, I had played my last high school season. Yeah,
Now
but
where
I was in shape. I was in shape.
now at this point in your life, where does the trumpet fit in?
Trumpet's in the closet, man.
You haven't really gotten serious yet
Nah,
about
nah,
trumpet,
nah, nah. I
and
took
now you're
lessons.
18, 19 years
And you
old.
know what, man? If any of my old teachers look at this, it has nothing to do with them, man. I had all good teachers when I was young. I just didn't practice, and I didn't care, and that stunk. And it was terrible. It was terrible.
Well,
I
they
didn't
haven't grabbed
practice.
you
I
yet.
would go weeks. I would go 3 weeks. I wouldn't touch my own, like that kind of thing.
I mean, you really had no reason. You were so busy with other things, and of course, basketball, and working, playing piano at the church, and guitar with the nuns. I mean,
Listen,
and
man. One time when I was like 19, no, yeah, 18 or 19, I used to play ball at this park, and this one dude was really into jazz. So I knew nothing about jazz, but of course I was stupid. I'm like, oh, I know about jazz. So he takes me to his house, and he must have played me some Miles from the '60s, and I heard like 10 seconds. And I'm going like, man, turn that off.
really,
I hated it, man. I hated it.
I got a funny story like that too. But go ahead with yours. I'll say
No, anyways, that's it. That's it. I'm just saying, like I didn't know anything by
so. The
that time.
epiphany has yet to happen. We'll get to that in a second. With me, what was funny was I got into prez. I played guitar too, and I had a best friend, and we thought we were the Everly Brothers. I grew up in Massachusetts, but I moved to Florida when I was 9, not 10. And my friend Harold was a year older than me, and we even looked alike. He was an adopted kid, and we both had the duck's ass haircuts, like the Everly Brothers, wore leather jackets, and we would sing not just the Everly Brothers. We did Little Richard, we did
Well,
Elvis. We sang um, things by the Commodores and Little Anthony and the Imperials with two voices. We'd do our harmonies. We were really good. And then he got killed. He got hit by a car when I was in Florida. He was going to come down and visit me from
I'm
Massachusetts.
sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so then I was so depressed because I never even had a pet that died. And there he was. He was my best buddy, and he was gone. And I couldn't listen to the rock and roll anymore. And I gave my guitar away. My dad had actually saved his money and bought me this really nice Gibson solid body. And he said, "You did what?" I said, "I gave my guitar to Bobby Kaminsky. He's playing guitar. I'll never play it again." And my dad was thinking, "Well, you could have sold it." No, I just didn't think about it. But anyway, so I started to listen to Prez. He was the first thing I heard that made me feel that he understood this kind of sadness.
Yeah,
And my mother had some
right.
good holiday records, and then Sinatra. Anyway, I started to listen to that kind of music, and that got me. Now the funny part with me, where you didn't dig Miles, this made me think of myself, that I got deeply into Prez, and then I heard Stan Getz, and of course I really liked Stan Getz. Plus, he was a Jewish guy like me, and he was hanging with these cats like Dizzy and Sonny Stitt and all of those things. He had this record for musicians only, which I'm sure you know, where they play everything up tempo, and there he is hanging. Plus, he had the beautiful beauty of the sound. There was a lot of things. So a friend of mine, Mark Colby, wonderful tenor player. He died last year. He played with Maynard for a while, and he was 2 years older than me. And I'd go to Mark's house and we'd listen to records together. and he was a Stan Getz fanatic too. But he had Sonny Rollins. I bought these records, Sonny Rollins at the Vanguard. I had heard one record of Sonny, and I liked it, the sound of Sonny. He played short solos and understood it. But Sonny at the Vanguard, I didn't know what the heck that was. It sounded like he was just honking and like, indulgent. And I said, yeah, I don't like this. So I traded it to him for a Zoot Sims New Beat Bossa Nova record.
All right.
And that was my first exposure to Rollins. And that, of course, changed. So I want to get to your epiphany. Okay, so now you've been exposed to Miles. You didn't like it. And, where now do you become Joe Magnarelli?
Well, I went to hear Sal Amico and JR at this club when I was 20. I was almost 23. And I just fell in love with Sal's sound and his approach and the way everything was so smooth that came out of his horn. So I asked him for a lesson. I went to his house, and I was a basketball player, and I was around a lot of drugs, man. I wouldn't say drugs. I was around a lot of pot.
Steroids.
No, pot. No, that's
pot.
I played the 70s, bro. Come on, man. No, I played high school ball. No, I mean, not really in high school, but in college. I played 2 years in college, and in college, the cats would smoke on the bus rides home, on the home games, but I never smoked because I was straight. Anyway, so I'm pretty straight, man. So I go to Sal's house. First thing he does, he gives me a joint. He cooks me lunch. And
First he offered you joint. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he gives me a joint, gets me high. So I smoke it. I get real high because I had dabbled. It wasn't the first time, but I wasn't like a pothead or anything like that.
Right.
I get a little high. He made me lunch. He made me sausage and peppers. Beautiful, man. Because he was also a chef.
Oh, man.
And he put on Kenny Dorham's Showboat. And that was it. That was my lesson. That was a lesson. He goes, listen, you just listen. That's it. And that was it, man. And then I was in another friend of mine's house later. And because I had started to listen to Clifford Brown before I had seen Sal. That's how it got me interested, And I listened to Max Place for Bird with Kenny Dorham. And,
of course, yeah.
And I heard that record.
I
wasn't high. I was straight. And that was the record that I said, okay, that's what I want. I thought it was Clifford at first because I didn't know. I didn't know who Kenny Dorham was. I thought, man, Clifford, man, wow. He's playing his ass off, man. Wow. Listen. And then I realized, no, it's not Clifford, it's Kenny Dorham. Yeah.
That's so interesting that we talk about KD, and you thought he was Clifford.
At first, yeah.
You and I have there's a lot of similarities that I'm finding that I didn't, you don't know. That's why I love doing this podcast, because we never really got to really hang like this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This is usually reserved for going on the road with somebody and get to know all those things,
That's right.
But this is my road now. But, I think that Kenny Dorham, gets, I wouldn't say bum rapped or bad rapped, but, like the way jazz critics think, or what I was watching an interview with Artie Shaw, and Artie was talking about this whole competitive idea, and he says it so beautifully. He says, it's wrong thinking. It's that KD didn't quite fulfill Clifford's shoes. Like in other words, Clifford passed, and there's a general consensus among what a friend of mine calls the no-blowing motherfuckers, or the no-blow mofos, or the critics sometimes that like the popular opinion that, well, yes, there was one Clifford, and he couldn't be replaced, and that's true. There's also one Kenny Dorham, and he couldn't be replaced either. And I thought he did a wonderful job of course, Clifford was terribly missed. I've talked to Sonny Rollins about it. There was nothing can change a loss like that. But nevertheless, they were blessed to have KD there to step in. And I think that if you look at the records objectively that were made, I mean, certainly Sonny Rollins +4 and Live at Basin Street, and those things are all magic and mystical, beautiful records that feature Clifford. But also the Sonny Plays for Bird, the Max Roach +4 with aesthetic and just one of those things. And the way that KD plays that halftime, the long meter kind of solo, the way he does that is another kind of mastery.
I totally agree, man. I mean, the thing about Clifford is that Clifford played perfect. You know what I mean? His solos are almost perfect. He doesn't really falter. You know, KD, I wouldn't say KD is like that on the surface. I don't think he falters, but I could see how people that don't hear it like we do with the love we have for it, they might not hear it that way. Because Clifford was just like, for what he played, especially with Max, those records when they were on the road, he was so strong and everything was just right there. You know what I mean? And KD, for me, it's always right there, you know, but his sound, especially on record, doesn't come across like Clifford's came across. I'm not saying Clifford's was a better sound or I like it better. I'm just saying, I think the way Clifford was recorded and the sound on record, it was very, it was very together.
Well, KD has more of a nasal tone in the sense of like, not in a negative or pejorative way, but Clifford's sound is very open and almost like an open-throated sound, like the way birds sound. And
see, here's the thing I would say. KD played more like a saxophone player than a trumpet player. You know what I mean? The way he, his phrases and the way he approached, he's more like a saxophone player to me sometimes.
Yeah, Miles too, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Miles too. And Clifford was a real dizzy, fats, saying straight ahead, down the middle, impeccable fluidity throughout the horn. KD played more like a saxophone player, nuance, bending notes, growling, playing in the tritone, which a lot of people didn't understand at that time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost a parallel to Jackie McLean.
Yeah,
in a certain way.
Exactly.
As opposed to Bird or even say Phil Woods or Cannonball, they play in a way that almost seems flawless.
Right.
They're also not taking quite the chance that's being taken sometimes in there by some of these less than perfect.
Jackie Mac, baby.
Jackie,
I love Jackie.
But now also Stan Getz put it interestingly. I was talking with Stan. I was listening to music one day with Stan, and I was just 13 when I met him, and we were listening to Coltrane, and I said, "What do you think of Coltrane?" And he said, "Well, he is the best of the sound on the saxophone." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, saxophone sound, there's and there's ooh." He said Lester Young is the quintessential ooh, where Coleman Hawkins is a little more and Coltrane is a little more He said where I'm more of an ooh, and Sonny Rollins is in between. When I told Lee Coates about this, I've told other people this story. When I mentioned that to Lee said, "What about ah?"
Oh yeah.
What about ah? But I think that by nasal, that's what I kind of meant. That it's a little more of a less open-throated quality.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Although KD was a trumpet virtuoso, man, just as much as Clifford was. You listen to Trumpet Toccata.
Yeah.
Just his the spring record with Cannonball. The record with Barry Harris.
Yeah.
Bullseye. He was just impeccable playing, man. Horace Silver.
You know what has killed me lately of KD? I know all that, the Messengers, the first Messenger records, all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
Man. How about the Preacher, man? That's one of the greatest trumpet solos of all time.
Well, one of my favorite solos, he plays one chorus on Randy Weston at the 5 spot, which has Coleman Hawkins playing extremely modern on tenor, and KD does his triplet thing. You know, the way he could play these triplets.
Yeah.
He does one. That's as close to perfection as a chorus as I've almost ever heard. You know that
I'm gonna check it
solo
out. I'm
on
gonna check
High
it out. I'm
Fly?
gonna check it. I'm
On
gonna check
High
it.
Fly, I listened to it the other night, and I actually listened to it about 6 times in a row. Every time I just said, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
actually, I remember hearing that. I'm gonna check it out again, but I just remember what I remember about it is the sound was so beautiful, man. Like, right, like really present, right?
Right. It was like that
Yeah,
also. That's a
yeah.
beautiful thing. Like they recorded him right.
Right, right, right.
I got to hear him live quite a bit. Did you get to hear him live?
No, no, unfortunately not. Yeah.
Well, I got to play with him quite a bit when I was a teenager.
Wow, wow,
He
wow,
and Wynton Kelly. I was living at Evelyn Blakey's house a lot of the time
wow.
and playing these after-hour sessions with them. And KD and Wynton adopted me. And Kenny taught me about a thing called the diminished trail. When I told him I would get lost because they were still putting up with me, I got so lost on It's You or No One the first time that I played it that I just wanted to jump out the window. I was so embarrassed. I just couldn't find where that tune went. Every time I found a key it went to, it wasn't there anymore. and, and so I said, "Hey, Katie, what do I do?" He said, if you can hear the diminished chords, there's a diminished trail through a song. So hear where each diminished chord leads to. It'll either lead you to a new tonic, the original tonic, or some kind of functional chord. It'll lead you to the 2 or it'll lead you to another 5, but just see where it will go. Follow those diminished ideas. Wherever you can pick up a diminished chord, play it. and just
Yeah,
try to, he said that'll get you to hear the basic structure of it. And they would tell me things like that. And he was so nice, man. He used to work at Manny's Music, and I would go and talk to him there
really, wow, wow.
in Midtown. I'd pick up a coffee or a tea or whatever he wanted. I went to see him first and then ask him what he wanted, maybe get a donut for him, and we'd sit
Nice.
and talk. And I never bugged him too much, but I'd stay maybe half an hour or so and then go on my merry way. And because I had so many questions that I didn't want to be a pain in the neck, and it was easy to do that. And one other funny story that you'll appreciate about him
Please, please.
was there was this place called Amo's. It was an after hours club. Amo was a bartender at Slugs, and when Slugs closed, he opened his club, and it was just active on Friday and Saturday nights. He opened about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
They'd play there till noon or
Wow.
around then. The sessions would be, he'd close the shades, the blinds, so it was constant night. And the audience was night people, bartenders, prostitutes, dope
Right,
dealers. This was the
right,
and a lot of musicians. And I mean, you'd sit there and you'd see, Wynton Kelly, Cedar Walton, Bobby Timmons, and Harold Mayburn, and whoever else was around. Those were just the piano players, and one night might fall by.
wow.
And you see Clifford Jordan and George Coleman and Charles Davis, and Charles took me around. That's why I met Charles, and I know you've had some experience with Charles too.
Definitely.
I had an erratic relationship with him. We would argue with each other and stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, he liked to argue.
He liked arguing. It was like,
Yeah, yeah. But that was his. I love that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, this is just to make this story a little shorter. He there was KD, and I didn't know how great he was then. I'd known Ira Sullivan. I was 17 years old, and I knew he was real good, and I knew him from the Sonny record, from the Max and a little bit of those things. But
Right.
I still bought the general feeling that he hadn't managed to really replace Clifford, because I read Downbeat, and that's what Downbeat told me to think. And that changed.
Yeah, yeah.
That changed real quickly. You'd be amazed how many people are still under the sway of that type of what Artie.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. He's ignored by a lot of people, man.
Yeah, and a lot of wrong thinking is going on, about a lot of people. But anyway, what was funny was that He was there in a dashiki and one of those little African caps, and he
Ah,
had a very chiseled face. He looked like he actually looked like an African mask to me. He looked like one of those, beautiful masks, and very, very interesting face. He had deep set eyes. And anyway, we're there, and Evelyn said to me, I met her. She said, "Well, why don't you stay at my house because you're coming back tomorrow night, and I got a couch, and you can just hang out at my house, and you can practice in the daytime, and you don't have to go, to the people uptown you're staying with, stay down with me. We like that." So we're gonna go to Evelyn's house, and we go outside, and Katie says, "I'll give you a ride, Evelyn," and so we go, and he says, "Well, this is it," and it's a checkered cab, and I go, "Damn, you are so hip," because the musicians were treating him like very with reverence. You could see this
yeah,
guy
yeah, 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 yeah.
special. And man, he is so hip. I mean, I thought I've seen some hip shit in my life, but this guy, you've got a yellow cab, a checkered cab, as your personal car. I gotta say, this is the hippest thing I've ever seen. And
Wow.
he falls out laughing, saying, "No, man, no, baby, I drive this cab. It's part of
Really?
what I do for a living. I'm going on a shift now." He said, "I brought the car over. I spent an hour or two at the session. Now I'm going to take Evelyn home, and I'm going to drive an early morning shift."
Wow.
And that's how you learn these
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Different
So,
world, man. Different world.
well, you're playing too. You're one of the few people that I really hear that influence used in your own, your own way, and really do appreciate that.
Well, one thing I heard about KD that stuck with me was that when he joined Charlie Parker's band, he knew all of Charlie Parker's solos up until that point that were recorded. He knew all of his music by heart.
I believe it.
And and then I realized, oh, so maybe if I just start checking out Bird and listening to Charlie Parker, I'll sound more like Kenny Dorham. You know what I mean? Because his sound, him and Blue Mitchell's sound, that's my love. I love those two sounds. So I don't think I could ever get away from that. Blue too, man. That's why I love Roy Hargrove, man. The first time I heard him, it was like listen to a Blue Mitchell record. So beautiful. And yeah, KD. So, but then I realized Bird is the man. They start. That's where I needed to go. And
Yeah,
that happened after I moved to New York. Yeah.
that was so. Now you had a little bit of an experience at Berkeley,
Yeah,
and
one semester. Yeah, yeah. I quit my basketball. I ended my basketball career short, and that was a stupid thing to do because, anyways. But I went to Berkeley, and I studied with a guy named Louis Mucci, who was a studio guy from New York. I mean,
I know the
you
name.
might have ran into him when you were young. You never know. But he went up there in the '70s to start teaching. He's on a Miles record. He's on one of those Gil Evans records. He played with Gil Evans. He did a lot of studio stuff. Anyways, I went to his office once a week and we played duets out of the Gotti book. And other than that, I just went to the Huntington Street Y every night and played basketball against football players from Boston University. 6 o'clock, man. 6 o'clock games. I played from 6 to 8:30 every night, man. Brutal games. Very small court, so it was cool.
So this was a one semester. Was it
One
the summer
semester, and
program?
I wasted the whole semester. I quit my team. I went to Boston. I watched my father drive down Mass Ave. I said, "What the hell am I doing, man?" But luckily I found the Huntington Y. It was 5-minute walk, and so I played ball. That meant really, literally, almost 5 nights a week up there. And I used to go up to Boston College too, because my friend who I played high school with at the time, Boston College still had a JV team, so he played on the JVs. So I used to go up there and play, and there's pretty good ball players up there playing. It was good games.
Now, before you went to Boston, were you continuing you had that one experience with Sal Amico? Did you
No,
continue
this
seeing
is this
Sal?
is way before. This is way before. Yeah,
This is
this
way
was.
before
Oh,
Sal
this is
Amico.
when. Yeah, this is when I'm 20 years old when I went to Boston. It's two or 3 years before that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you were a trumpet player. I mean, were you thinking of trumpet or piano?
I got accepted as a trumpet player, which is blows my mind. But I did take lessons the last, like senior year in high school, first year in college. I did take lessons, and I don't know, man. I could play a certain way, even though I couldn't really I couldn't play lead or anything like that. So, I got in, I guess. They accept everybody. And I
But you
had
hadn't
good,
really listened. You weren't listening to jazz
no, no,
yet at all.
I started there. I used to go to the library and listen to Clifford Brown records. They had a nice library, and you could take out records, as basically, yeah. You records, and you
Yeah.
play the record, and yeah, listen to. That's where I started listening to Maynard Ferguson and Clifford Brown mostly.
Huh.
Yeah, but like I said, it was a waste of time, man, because I played ball every night. It was just
So you
I
didn't
never
really
wanted
hang
to.
with any of the other Berkeley students very
No,
much.
no. I'll tell you a story though. Every night when I used to go out the front door to go play, Smitty Smith 90% of the time was standing there with his drums stacked up, waiting for a ride. All his drums were stacked, and he's waiting there for a ride. And I recognized him later. Like I said, man, you're the guy that like used to be in the. I didn't say that to him, but that was him, Smitty. Yeah.
So now after your one semester at Berkeley, now
Oh,
you
and
have,
I just say one more thing. One more thing about Berkeley, which was great. They had a security guy down by the elevators. I got to talking with him. Turns out he had season tickets to the Celtic games. So I went to 6 Celtic games. Larry Bird's freshman year, his rookie season. It was unbelievable.
oh,
It was unbelievable. I saw Dr. J play twice. I saw Moses Malone. I saw Gus Williams and Dennis Johnson play for Seattle. It was great. It was unbelievable.
well, I used to tell people, they'd say, "Who are your idols?" I'd say Bird and Bird.
Yeah, right. That's right. I got it right here, man. I got pictures side by side.
Well, I said, well, Larry Bird, because he was a white man who excelled at a black art,
That's
at a
right. He
predominantly
did.
black,
He did.
craft and art.